somehow along the line, I heard this quote: "Seek not to move man except by God through prayer." In other words, before you even start the conversation, start with prayer. No matter how persuasive you are, no matter how kind you are, no matter how great the data is that you're throwing at him, the only person who can change a heart is God. So it's really important that we acknowledge that when we start from that place of going to our Heavenly Father and saying, this is something that really matters to me, and would you please bring us into unity?
Holy Wild Birth is a podcast embracing the reclamation of giving birth, rooted in God's original design, undisturbed.
Here, we share home birth stories highlighting God's presence as the great midwife, as well as conversations about all aspects of a holistic, spirit-led childbearing year. From the perspectives of myself, traditional midwife Lauren Hall of Rooted in Eden Private Contract Association,
and me, holistic doula and birthkeeper Brooke Collier of Sister Birth.
To choose a holy wild birth journey is to consecrate all your decisions unto the Lord.
And to reclaim creation unadulterated by centuries of human attempts to control and improve upon what God has already called good.
Please remember, birth is not a medical event, but a natural process. We are not your care providers, and this should not be taken as medical advice.
Welcome, sisters and possibly brothers, to this special episode of Holy Wild Birth. I first wanted to start by saying, before we jump into the topic, thank you so much on behalf of both me and Lauren for continuing to listen to this podcast, to support it, to leave reviews. We could use more of those. For recommending it to others and for sharing it in your Instagram stories or recommending it on Facebook. It means so much to us. We're having a great time, and we're actually approaching 10,000 listens, 10,000 downloads and listens, which is pretty awesome. And we are hoping to maybe celebrate that landmark moment with a bit of a giveaway. So keep an eye out for that on our Instagram accounts. So we're actually going to be doing a season break after this episode. Holiday season, we just decided, let's take a little pause. Let's be really present to our families. In my case, things are just moving at a snail's pace, and I have limited capacity with my newborn, and Lauren is in a really busy and transitional season with her midwifery. So we're going to be on a holiday break, and we will be back in January with more episodes. So we are not gone forever, never you fear. In fact, if you want to help us out with something, in the show notes, you're going to see a link to a form, a Google form. And I'm asking you if you would consider using that form to either submit a quick question that you might like us to tackle on a future Q&A episode, or a suggestion for a topic for a future podcast, like a topic you think we could build an entire episode about. We would really love to get that kind of feedback and input from you guys, because we want to make content that matters to you. So I think that's it for now. Now to the topic. This topic is going to be about home birth hesitant dads, aka those guys who just aren't so sure about this home birth thing or this free birth thing or whichever it may be. And I think it's a really great episode with a lot of good content and a surprise special guest. I'm wondering if you can guess who it is. You'll find out soon enough. So without further delay, let's jump right in
to the topic of husbands, and particularly husbands whose wives want to have home births and they're not so sure about it themselves. So I'm going to just tell you first what you can expect from this time. Here's what we're going to cover. It's kind of going to be a lot, but we're still going to try to keep it shortish. All right, first we're going to talk about how husbands may react to the idea of home birth. And then I want to talk a little bit about how, as a Christian wife, we can kind of address or move into that conversation with them in ways that are respectful and also hopefully can move us more onto the same page. And then we're going to talk about what sorts of information and realizations and conclusions might ultimately kind of help a dad or a husband who's on the fence about this come to a place of oh yeah, actually that's good. So those would be really good things to take notes on. This is stuff my husband has chimed in on that he's said were key for him. So that might be something that applies for yours as well. And then what really, like on a deeper level, what's really getting in the way for dads or for husbands? I don't know what to call them. They're both. And then at the end, we'll talk about what if he won't budge? Like what if you've presented all the information, you've had all the conversations and he's still like, nope. Then what do you do? Who gets to decide? That's a hard question. And then I'll try again, if baby nap allows, to have some Q&A at the end. So are you ready? Okay. Let's do this. One more thing I want to mention before I also have a surprise for you. A really fun surprise. On June 14, which is Monday, starting that day, I am kicking off a 5-day long free live workshop called Trust God, Trust Birth, the path to confident and joyful home birth. And it is free, and it's about an hour a day of a live cast with me that has very actionable steps that you can take to move closer to having the birth of your dreams. So I hope you can sign up for that. If you go up to the banner image at the top of the group, you'll see it says click here to register. Click on that, follow the link, get signed up, and then you get your workbook registered to be a part of that, as well as to possibly win prizes. So that's fun. Okay. Now I'm going to bring on the surprise. The surprise is I was talking to my husband about this topic and how I was going to get on here and talk about this today. And he had a lot of thoughts about it. And so we thought, what if he joins us? So without further ado, this is my husband, Tim. Hey. And he's a lot taller than me. So getting the angle is going to be a little challenging.
All right.
So he has a lot of good stuff. I told him actually that maybe I didn't even have to do this live and he could just take it himself. So if the baby does end up crying, it might be me who leaves because he has more to contribute here than I do. But we were going to start with, I just wanted you to tell them. He actually, he revealed to me some very uncensored thoughts and feelings he first had when I suggested home birth to him that I didn't even know he had, because I think he was being diplomatic at the time. But he's going to share with you his very raw reactions to the first time that I suggested the idea of home birth.
Yes.
You want to start there?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim.
Home birth dad 5 times over. The last time was unassisted, which could probably be an entire other Facebook Live, because that was definitely like a whole nother level of conversation and processing and yeah.
But a lot of the same ideas, I would say.
Yeah.
The process of coming to that was, I would say, very similar to just the first time considering home birth in general. So, yeah, I would say they're both very similar, actually.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Hit them. Tell them what you really thought.
All right. I feel like I have to duck down to get
make it taller for you.
There we go. All right. Okay. So, there we go.
I'm just going to drink my coffee while you run the show.
All right. You can chime in as much as you want. I'm sure you'll have some things to say. So, yes. So, home birth hesitant husbands. I wrote down my little notes document, HHH, home birth hesitant husbands. I know what it's like to be one. I was one. So I'll just start there when Brooke first brought this up. So when Brooke first brought this up to me, it was 11 years ago, 12 years ago, maybe. And she kind of just casually mentioned it one night.
We were either very newly married or not yet married.
Yeah, we were married. It was our first year.
Okay. And
I remember she just casually mentioned it to me one night, that she was like, oh yeah, when we have a baby, I want to have a home birth. And I was just like, what? I laughed. I remember I laughed at her, and I just thought it was the most ridiculous thing she had ever proposed. And I didn't think she was serious. And then when she said that she was serious, I was like, oh no, what do I do? And I totally thought that, in my mind, there was obviously no good reason to have a birth outside of the hospital and at home. And so I thought that it was unnecessarily, like, not knowing then what I know now, I thought it was unnecessarily putting our child's life at risk for no good reason, really. And I thought that it was like hippy dippy, woo woo, that it was just something that the idea of it must just be something that someone would do just to score points with the crunchy, natural crowd, whatever. And that was literally what I thought. I thought that I needed to talk some sense into Brooke.
Like she's gone too far this time.
Yeah, like it was just like her identity was too much wrapped into this idea. Like I could get on board with all sorts of other things, about being natural, whatever, eating healthy and things like that made sense to me. But this was just so out of left field for me. And it was so out of, like, I just couldn't imagine how it could be a good idea that that was just what I thought. That was my, I thought it was just straight, just like wanting to stick it to the man and opt out of the system.
Well, there's a little bit of that too. You had never even heard that. You didn't even know it was a thing that people did, right? It was like an utterly new idea to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you hadn't known somebody who had a home birth with a bad outcome. So it wasn't like about having heard horror stories. Yeah. You just had like most all of us growing up, just like assuming that you go to the hospital to have a baby because that's where it's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was absolutely clear to me, that because the hospital is where the medical technology is and where the medical experts are, that is just the safest place for a baby and a mom to have a baby, basically. And so I needed to, so Brooke kept bringing this up and I was just like, oh my gosh, what do we do here? Like, this is ridiculous. And she asked me to watch this documentary before I would say no to it. And I was just kind of like, okay, all right, I'll watch this documentary. So one night we fired it up. And I think even as we were firing it up, so it's called The Business of Being Born. And even as we're like on a Friday night getting it set up, I think it might have even been a DVD back in the day. That was before everything was streaming. And I just remember thinking, like, what are we doing here? And she explained to me that it's actually made by Ricky Lake. And I was just like,
that didn't help.
I was like, Ricky, like the 90s daytime talk show host, Ricky Lake. Like, what are we doing? Why are we spending our Friday night doing this? And so anyway, so that was actually a really good documentary that opened the door for me to begin to understand why home birth makes sense. Mm-hmm. And it brought me down the road to, it got me further down the road to understanding some more ideas that were actually really, it eventually solidified for me that home birth makes a ton of sense, and I would not go back. So anyway, so I think I just wanted to share. Oh. What were you gonna say?
I just wanted to, before you launched into the wonderful conclusions you ultimately came to, I wanted to say a couple things.
Yeah,
that's all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Go for it.
Oh, okay. So, and that kind of weaves in this other question, right? Is like, as wives, how can we approach a husband who's really like against it at first? And I don't think I have like a magical answer about this, but as he said, I think what I did was I really simplified the request. I was like, I told him it meant something to me, that I learned about it, that I wanted it. And then I just said, before you say no, will you do one thing for me? And I was like, watch this documentary, right? So a really simplified request. And I have knowing
and watch it with an open mind, right?
Yeah,
because you can go into
that's
something
true, and be totally shut down about it.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of women whose husbands have ultimately been swayed by that same documentary. So I think it really is a good one. And I don't mean to make like gender stereotypical sweeping statements here, but I do think it is generally true that most men are not as likely to pick up and read the birth books as we are. They're just probably not going to do it. They're probably not going to follow a birth blogger or follow a birth account on Instagram, like, so trying to find a medium of sharing information that fits for him, like as a man in general, but also like your husband specifically, like just knowing who you're married to and like what are the mediums that tend to work for him when he's trying to learn something. So maybe it's a podcast episode, you like, and choose carefully, because probably you're only going to have one or two choices or chances, right, to introduce one or two pieces of content for him to digest. So if he's like a really numbers-based guy, he's really fact-based, then showing him research might be the thing, like a actual research article, which I can link one below here. That's like the biggest study on home birth to date, which has some really amazing findings. Other dads, it might be the documentary. It might be stories from other people who've done it. There's another movie out there called Why Not Home. That's a little bit newer than Business of Being Born, and Tim hasn't even seen this one, but it's Why Not Home is all about medical professionals choosing home births, which is a unique vantage point. And so if you have a husband who's like really trusts the medical world and medical providers, then seeing a whole movie about how medical providers are having their babies at home might be something that really works for him. So and then I would just also say, obviously be kind, because nobody likes to be approached in a like defensive, demanding like tone. Like I think that how you approach it in like an attitude of inviting collaboration and even just sharing your heart, like, this really matters to me, and I know you don't get it right now, but it's actually really important to me. Is so much different than being like, well, this is what I'm gonna do, and I don't care what you think, and you can get on board or not, but it's happening. Like, I mean, honestly, in some ways, I believe that at the end of the day, like, and we'll get into this more later, I think, at the end of the day, like, it probably should be the woman's ultimate choice, but you don't lead with that kind of like, this is just what I'm gonna do, like, because you want buy-in, you want to be on the same page, you want the unity. So it's good to try your best to start off on that foot. So those are just a few. I thought I had a few thoughts about as a wife, like how do you? Oh, the biggest one. Can't believe I forgot to say this one. Somehow along the line, I heard this quote: "Seek not to move man except by God through prayer." In other words, before you even start the conversation, start with prayer. No matter how persuasive you are, no matter how kind you are, no matter how great the data is that you're throwing at him, like, the only person who can change a heart is God. So, like, it's really important that we acknowledge that when we start from that place of going to our Heavenly Father and saying, this is something that really matters to me, and would you please bring us into unity, and would you like bring things across this path that prepare his heart for what I want to share with him? Would you open up his mind? Would you soften? Like, you ask God to do what only God can do, which is to change a heart. And you also have to be prepared for the fact that he might change yours, because that's another possibility. But that is probably the biggest piece of advice I would have, is start there before you even say a word. Start there. Okay. At
the same time, you don't want to shy away from speaking what you using your voice and speaking what you would prefer, and making sure that he knows that this is really important to you as a wife, and your voice matters, and you don't want to just leave it to prayer and not say anything. So
right, like, we're of the mind that biblical submission does not mean that you don't gently push back. Like, it just doesn't. So you are allowed to. It's
a mutual submission,
right? Yeah. It's a mutual submission, and he's to love you as he loves his own body. And your body in this case is the one that's going to be bearing not just a lion's share, but the entirety of what is about to transpire in your birth. So that should matter to him. And again, you can't make that matter to him, but hopefully it does. So
yeah. So I was originally going to share I was like, all right, I'm just going to make what were the three big things that brought me into critical awareness around this issue that caused me to reconsider seriously whether this was like a legitimate thing that we should think about and do. And so I started out with 3, and then I actually ended up with 6 because there was more, there was like just more reasons than I could even, that I remembered, that I was like, I don't want to leave any of these out. There's probably more, but I'm just going to keep it to these 6.
This is really good stuff, by the way.
So
I feel like I've done a good job.
yeah. So anyway, I'll just jump right in. So the first was that of beginning to see that though hospitals are really great for medical emergencies, they are, in terms of birth, hospitals are, you can't get around the fact that hospitals are a corporate business. And so when you walk into a hospital, especially a birth part of it, you're entering into a place that has been set up as a context of a business. It's a big business, and therefore there's lots of policies and procedures that have been set in place that are baked into how the whole thing works. And no matter, you can have great doctors, you can have great nurses, you can have not so great doctors and not so great nurses. But the fact is that the whole system is set up around, there's natural incentives for things to be set up in such a way that it makes things efficient for the business, for getting profitable for women who are profitable for the business, for the hospital. Birth wards are one of the biggest money makers for hospitals. That's just true. And so that what that practically means is that for women coming in to give birth, it's highly incentivized for doctors to recommend interventions that will speed up the birth process. And the thing is, it's always kind of recommended as like, yeah, you should probably do this. It's recommended as a good thing, but ultimately those interventions, it causes, once you start one, usually something like is it Pitocin that moves it faster? I can't remember what it was. Yeah. It begins like a cascade of one intervention leads to another intervention, leads to another thing. Now you're going to have to use this. Now you're going to have to do this. And what it ultimately usually leads to a C-section. And the thing is, a C-section is a very, having learned, again, I had to learn about this. A C-section, though, is a really great thing to have in the toolbox for when the time comes for a medical emergency and you need to get that baby out and there's a true medical emergency. But often those C-sections could have been avoided if you hadn't intervened in the first place in the natural birth process. And so this was something that I had to learn. And the thing is, a C-section is it is a major medical procedure.
It's an abdominal surgery.
Yeah, it's a surgery,
which is risky and hard to recover from.
Yeah, it takes a toll on the body of a woman. There's a much longer recovery time, more difficult recovery time for a C-section than if the woman gave birth naturally, vaginally.
And in the U.S., the average cesarean rate at hospitals is about 33%. For home births, it's about 1%. Because some home births do still end up having a cesarean. But whereas the World Health Organization recommends, they say that the rate should be between 10 and 15%. So we are doubled that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's one of my, that's actually leads to my next point. So that's first, just beginning to see and understand that there are natural incentives that work for the hospital and not necessarily for the health and safety of individual mothers and their babies. And so, which you would think that a hospital, it's the safest place, but that was something that was eye-opening to me. So the second thing that was probably the biggest for me was just looking at the raw statistical data of the United States, where hospital birth is the norm, the key statistical safety measurements for like infant mortality, maternal mortality, and C-section rates.
And also infant and maternal morbidity, which means like injury or damage.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Another one, yeah.
Yes, those key indicators, comparing the United States to other developed countries where home birth is the norm.
Yeah, or is more integrated in common at least. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, it is more integrated in common. And just looking at those, you can see very clearly that the United States is failing terribly in this area. And so, again, you would think that, man, we've got so much money. Our healthcare system, like, man, it's expensive, but it's the bomb, you know? And in a lot of ways it is, but in this sense, it's failing mothers and babies like crazy. And this was like the biggest eye opener for me.
Yeah, because that's not just like I feel like it's failing mothers and babies. It's like, no, like statistically it is failing mothers and babies.
Yeah. And so, and if you, and even, I probably don't want to get into it, but like if you're a Black mother or going into a hospital, the statistics are even worse somehow.
30 to 50% worse.
It's just, so, I mean, we've known, we had a friend who was a Black pregnant woman who was coming, the reason she was having a home birth was because she knew the statistics for her demographic. And she was like, this is not good. I need to protect myself. So again, looking at this, I think beginning to recognize that, I'll just move into this because, so learning that giving birth, like kind of shifting my perspective alongside of this to realize that giving birth is normal. It's very normal. Giving birth vaginally is a normal thing for a human process of a woman to do, like we're designed for it. And this, realizing that the opposite is not true, that giving birth is not a medical emergency in and of itself. Most of the time, it is a very natural process. Like
pooping or puking.
Yes. So most of the time, when women are left undisturbed in a very trusting environment where they feel comfortable, they can do what they need to do to have this baby, the very high percentage, it goes through well, and it's a great, it just works, you know. God made our bodies to work, and it's a miraculous, awe-inspiring thing to witness. But that was a big shift for me, just to realize, because growing up in our culture, birth is portrayed in media as like this, like, you know, get to the hospital,
panic.
You know, the woman in labor is screaming. It's just out of control. It's this chaotic, you know, and that's how we grow up thinking of birth, is that we need doctors to come save us. But it's actually, when you have a competent midwife who can guide the process and just help you know where you are along the process and lets you your body do its thing and it coaches you where you need some coaching, you know. But that's, the statistics show that this is very normal. This is very good. So
you skipped number 3. Did you mean to?
Did I? Oh, you know, I meant I think I wanted that to come afterwards.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, I think the thing for me was, even like thinking about home birth, I was like, okay, so hospitals are good in the case that we actually do need them, and I had to learn to understand that even in the rare case that you might have, so one, midwives are very good at discerning when they when you do need to transfer to a hospital. There's some kind of thing going on where, okay, it would be safer for you to finish this journey in the hospital. And midwives are trained very well to recognize those situations and to call it out and just say, hey, this is what would likely be the best thing to do.
But then also, they know what normal is, so they recognize when things become not normal.
Exactly.
And there's some things that they would say, now it's time to transfer to the hospital because you need the care of somebody that's not me. But then there's other things that I think a lot of husbands don't recognize or don't know right away, is that most midwives also know how to deal with a lot of those emergencies on site
Yeah.
at your house. Like
Exactly.
they can stop a hemorrhage. They can help a baby that's not breathing. They can get a baby that's unstuck. You know, they can do a lot of that there on site without even having to move you. So
yeah,
I don't know if most guys realize that.
exactly. Yeah. So they're very skilled, and a good midwife is skilled and trained to be able to take care of a lot of those situations. And in the rare case that you do need to transfer, that whatever the 10 to 20 minute transfer time is usually like, I remember just having all these questions like, what if we do need to transfer? What, you know, usually that is not like a big deal, that transfer time. Usually you can get there and anyway, so moving on to the next one. So birth for me, it was starting to realize that giving birth for a woman is a significant rite of passage in a woman's life. So yes, and even just starting to understand some of the research that has gone into around the world, how rites of passage in cultures that are valued and observed and celebrated in people they're really significant for the development and the maturing. They're like these really significant moments in people's lives, maturing into adulthood. And for me, realizing that a woman giving birth, this is a significant moment in her life, stepping into motherhood, or maybe stepping into motherhood for the third or fourth time. But honoring that moment. And for me, recognizing that if there are things inside of me that haven't dealt with, that I am imposing on her in this really significant moment in her life, which is a rite of passage. I don't want whatever's going on inside of me to get in the way of that rite of passage, how she wants to walk through this and experience it.
You know, I just now thought of this, but I think in a different way, it can be a rite of passage for you too.
Yeah.
Like even in learning how to offer your masculine energy to support and give freedom to and create a circle of protection around your woman, you know, like totally. And to release your illusion of control.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So that, I think there can be a rite of passage for guys too, that they might not be thinking about that, but I think that can be, if they choose to let it be that can be a really transformative thing for them as well.
That's good. Yeah. So I don't want to get in the way of that. And I want to support her through that. The fifth thing was this was after the fact, after we had our first baby, and the postpartum is so much easier at home. Like after we had our first baby, and even after the second, third, we've had 5 now. It's great that you've got your baby there and you're in your own bed, you're in your own house. You have all the things that you need. Your kids, when you're ready for them, they can come in. And
the bed is big enough for both of you?
Yeah.
It's not like this little narrow.
And it's just so much easier. I remember thinking during that time, if we were at the hospital right now and like the kids were at home and we were here and I had to go back and forth and, and then we would have to like, in a couple of days, transfer home, like, man, that would be such a hassle to think about. I was just like, I'm just so glad we're home and we just get to enjoy this.
And then like the midwife comes to check on you the next day instead. And like, you don't even know this, but I've been with women in hospital births, even though I've never had one myself. And they're so disruptive at the hospital too. Like not only is it inconvenient, but then you get interrupted like all night long for like more checks on your vital signs and the baby's vital signs and like, oh, we have to do a heel prick and it's time to circumcise your baby if you're choosing to do that. So it's like you're not even really resting at the hospital. Yeah. At home you can just rest because you're they don't do that all night.
Yeah. And I would say that for me, easily the first weeks of each of our child's after each of our child's births are easily the best weeks of my life. There's nothing like it. It feels like the world has stopped for you and the world has been made new. and you just have this whole like time to just be together and soak it in.
That's so
And
good.
just the fact that, again, that you're home and you don't have to hassle with anything. You've got people coming in to check on you when you need them. You have a mother or mother-in-law who's coming to help, or friends. That's amazing as well. And then the last thing was, this is really practical, but home birth is cheap, man. So in comparison to having a hospital, so hospital births are like it's $6,000 to $12,000 often
For a natural vaginal delivery, and a cesarean approaches 30, I think, the last statistics I read.
So hospital births, man, they're expensive. And even if you have insurance, it's often the part that you end up paying, the copay or whatever, the percentage, it can be more than what hiring a home birth midwife could be for the global fee, for getting all of the, the leading up, the
prenatal appointments,
and the postpartum, and them being with you, and all the like personal care that you get, the continuum of care from beginning to end. And I was just like, so you do often have to pay out of pocket. There might be some insurance companies that cover that.
There are some that will cover 100%.
So you might be lucky in that regard. But even if you don't, like I remember someone else who had a baby about the same time as us, who had it at the hospital, and them telling me how much it costs, even with their copay. I was like, dang, man, they paid more than we did, and they have insurance.
Right.
So it's cheap. It's really cost effective in a lot of ways. And if money is an issue, sometimes we bartered for our first one. We were really strapped for our first home birth. And we had, the midwife was like, I can see that you guys want this. And we were like trying to figure out ways. We worked out a barter system where we made meals for the midwife in return.
And I did photography. Photography and freezer meals was how we paid her.
To significantly bring it down. Yeah. So anyway, so those are like the 6 big things that that shifted and made me begin to recognize that, okay, this is a real thing. This is legit. And then ultimately completely converted me to home birth.
I remember afterwards you'd be like, I feel like you said something after Hazel was born, like, I would never do this any other way.
Yeah.
And it was hard too. Like, it wasn't an easy home birth. It was long.
That was our hardest
and hot and like 5 hours of pushing and like 48 hours total. Like, and yet still you're like, I wouldn't do it any other way.
Yeah. If we had been at the hospital, they wouldn't have let you. The policies and procedures wouldn't have let you go labor that long.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain I would have had a cesarean.
Yeah, they would have had interventions because their policies don't allow you to have that that long of labor.
Right.
But it's a normal thing. It's just women sometimes take longer.
Right. Exactly. Especially the first time. Yeah. So
again, I didn't know any of this. We learned by experience. So the last 3 things. So I was just going to say, as I was reflecting on all of this, and I was those things brought me into critical awareness and reflecting back on what was initially keeping me from considering it. And
like kind of at a deeper level you're going to talk about now, right? Like there's like these surface levels, like it costs money, or like, I'm not sure if it's safe, but then I think there's some deeper things that you're about to get into that are really good. Yeah. That take a lot of self-awareness to admit.
Looking deep inside myself, I can see now what some of the things that were going on and just naming them. So one was unchecked assumptions. Like I was assuming a whole lot based on what I just grown up in, and I had not taken the time to consider if giving birth in a hospital was actually the safest place, given statistics and actually
you just assumed that it was.
Yeah, I just assumed. Everybody thinks so. That's what most of culture thinks, Yeah. And then the second thing I would say is pride. Just straight up, I thought I just knew what was right in this case, and I wasn't willing to consider for a while that Brooke could be right in this area. And so that's what we call pride, right? And so the third thing, I kind of packaged these two together. They're not good. They're not nice. The laziness and ignorance.
You told me this one, and I was like, "You're not making yourself look real good."
Yeah, I wasn't willing to look. I wasn't really to really do much in terms of research to find out about the topic, to actually give it a good go, to consider it. And even though this was something that was clearly important to my wife, I was just not into it. Like I didn't want to put the effort into learning about it. So, and then the last thing was fear. Just when I considered the idea of giving birth at home, I had this like reaction, this emotional reaction of fear. Like I was afraid that just the thought of giving birth at home, outside of the place that I assumed was the safest place, it was just imagining how that happening was really scary. And I don't want my wife to die, and I don't want my child to die. And it kind of, there's that protection thing for my family that rises up based on what I thought was true, you know? So anyway, here's the thing. If I had let any of those things, unchecked assumptions, pride, laziness and ignorance or fear, if any one of those is the reason truly that I am saying no to my wife, if she is saying, I would like to really consider having a home birth, or I want to have a home birth, I don't want any of those things to get in the way of something that that my wife wants me to seriously consider. And if those are the things, and I'm just saying no because of any of those reasons, that's just not good for your marriage, for your relationship. That's going to bring disconnection between you and your spouse. And if she doesn't feel like if she feels like any of these things are true for me, and that she doesn't feel like I've really given my all into understanding this situation, into understanding, into like examining myself to see if anything's getting in the way. If she doesn't feel like I've done that work when I'm saying no, then that's going to get in the way of our relationship and our connection and our unity. And that's just not a place you want to be as a husband, as a couple. That sucks. Yeah.
No, that's good.
So my challenge or my question to maybe any husbands who might be watching this later on, maybe your wife has asked you to watch this, I would just ask you to ask yourself, do I see any of these things? Just these are kind of some self-awareness building questions. Like, am I letting pride get in the way? Do I just think that I'm right in this, even though maybe I might be operating under some unchecked assumptions about what is true here? Do I need to truly look into some research about this? And then am I being lazy? Just look, you can kind of tell when you're just being lazy about stuff. Sometimes you don't often think I'm being lazy, but sometimes you just need that check. And I just want to check yourself. Is there laziness in here? Do I need to step it up and engage this conversation with my heart and my head? And then fear. Am I being controlled by a visceral fear that something will go terribly wrong if we do this? And
yeah, there's a difference between caution, wise caution, and fear. And I like to say, no good decision has ever been made when you're in the grip of that kind of visceral fear.
Yeah.
You just don't make good decisions in that state, right?
Yeah, you can't function at your higher level when you're gripped by that fear. You're in a different state of mind. It's like a fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
So ask yourself those questions and maybe have some. I think Brooke was going to have some questions that husbands and wives can maybe talk about together, kind of some conversation starters that can maybe open this up for if you guys need to have a conversation together, to consider this together. I will put one more quick kind of caveat on I mentioned that movie, Business of Being Born. That's a really helpful thing, like documentary, watching a movie is a good thing to jump into. There is some, one thing that was a little bit, can be hard for some people to get over, is the maternal nudity in the process of, so in this documentary, they actually show I think they follow 3 women through getting I'm not getting pregnant. Being pregnant.
That would probably be appropriate.
Find out that they're pregnant, hiring a midwife, and then giving birth. And so they actually show these women giving birth, at home. And I was totally like, when we watched that movie, Brooke was like, "Oh yeah, there's maternal nudity. You're gonna see women naked giving birth." And I was just like, "What?" Like I couldn't believe that I was sitting down with my wife, who was asking me to watch this movie where I was going to see women who were naked. And I was like uncomfortable with it. I didn't know that this was a thing, but I learned that, okay, maternal nudity it's a different thing than just straight up nudity, It's
not, if there's a difference between like nudity that happens during birth, because that's just kind of how instinctually women end up giving birth, and like pornography. It's not porn.
Yeah.
Like
or even other nudity that can be perceived as sexualized or sexualized by the person watching it. I would say that maternal nudity during labor is it's like the opposite of sexualized. Yeah. You're immediately confronted by the fact that there's something way bigger going on here than the fact that this woman is naked. She's pushing a baby out of her body. And even though you can see the parts of her body that you normally wouldn't be able to see, it's the process of this body working out something very big. and that is the center point of all of this. And so it can still be uncomfortable. Some people just might not be there. And if not, that's okay. But if you don't want to watch that documentary because of that, don't let that get in the way of you doing research, other kinds of research, where, so if there's a book or a PDF, Brooke, I know she's got tons of resources on this that help you to become more educated about this.
Yeah. And inside of my group coaching program, Embrace Birth Journey, which I'm going to be unveiling in full soon, there are sections in there that address so much of this on a deeper level too, even the fear piece he was talking about, that they're in there for a mama to go through, but they would be equally as good for a dad to go through, clearing out fear by really intentionally working through each specific one. There's also a bunch of sections in there that Tim did actually just for dads, for in each phase too. So that's another resource too that I'll share more about soon. But this has been good. You had so much good stuff that I didn't even know you had all that synthesized inside of you till today.
Sure. And maybe another thing would be to reach out if you know another couple who has given birth at home. Might be helpful to just have the husband call up and have a conversation, have coffee with that person who's given birth, to kind of help and just ask them, what was that like for you? What brought you to this decision to consider that and ultimately do it? And for me, that was really helpful. Even this last time when we gave birth, I was fighting. I had some of the stuff going on. I had some of the fear stuff going on, and I just needed to talk to somebody. I needed to talk to another husband who had done this before. It was a little bit further along than me and could help me process those fears and internally.
And just kind of speak to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was critical for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really helpful. So say you've had all the conversations and he still won't budge. What if you've done all this and you're still at an impasse in your marriage? Who do you think gets to decide?
You didn't say you were going to pop this one on me.
I'm bringing it up because I know it's something that people think about, and I think that we wrestle with, and I don't know that maybe we don't have an answer, but theologically, I think we wrestle with that through the lens of what it means to submit to one another.
Exactly. And that's a big question.
I've actually even heard one mom ask, well, my body doesn't just belong to me; it belongs to my husband. So then like he
Mhm.
should. Then
Our
she was
bodies
like, so does
belong
that
to one
mean that he
another."
gets to decide that my body can't have a home birth? And that's tricky.
That is a hard question.
That's tricky.
I maybe what I'll just say is you'll never regret fighting for unity, like not combating with one another, but fighting together to come to a place of unity in this. And so I would say most of the time, I think it's fighting through a lot of this internal stuff, and every couple's situation is unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think I don't know if I can.
Yeah, I don't either. I think
everyone.
what I was actually gonna say as an answer to that is more like, just from the wife's perspective. Once you feel like you've done all you can in the natural and you've prayed, and if he's still not budging, I think that's probably a time to like really ask the Holy Spirit to speak to you, to tell you if it's best to just yield and say, okay, I trust you, God, that you're going to take care of me, even if I can't have the birth that I really, really want and feel like is best and like the wisest, best choice for me and my baby. You see me here, and I trust you to take care of me, even if I can't have this thing that I really feel like I need and want. Like, so maybe he'll lead you that way, or maybe he'll lead you to saying, go ahead with it and trust me that your husband's going to come on board. And then very last minute, I don't know. I think it could go either way, and that's a time to really seek the Holy Spirit's counsel too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so hard for me to imagine, just from reading this book, like what was going to happen and how to prepare. This might sound like a shameless plug, but if we had had access to something like Brooke's course for doing home birth, like the video, like the teaching, the video aspect of it, that would have served me as a husband so much better. Oh my gosh. Like if we could have had that would have been so valuable to me as a husband alone.
Yeah.
Because it was, books are great, but I'm a very auditory learner, visual learner, like seeing something, having someone explain something to me and then processing it, having questions. I was just using books to read, and that there was good information, but it was really hard for me to digest it in that format.
And finding a class locally, I'm sure we probably could have. I don't know why we didn't. It was probably a money thing, honestly. And then also, it feels sometimes inconvenient to like fit into the schedule of whenever the class is going on, So yeah, my course and my group coaching program is literally what I made because it's what I wish I had the first time.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Holy Wild Birth. We hope that you were genuinely encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. If you're loving what you hear, please make sure that you share it. Leave reviews. That helps other mamas find this content as well. And don't forget to read the show notes, okay? Because that's where you can find our email address if you want to reach out to us and start a conversation. It's also where you'll find free offerings as well as invitations to work with me and or Lauren. We can't wait to get to know you. See you next week.